Welcome to FilmIn5D, the show that puts together everything film with the 5D Mark II. I'm your host, Aaron Hammock, and this week we start our VFX tutorials with an introduction to compositing.
Are you okay?
Yeah, what?
You kind of got an arm thing going on there.
Yeah, got a little boo-boo. Had to edit last week's episode one-handed.
Ouch.
Yeah. But it's okay. The show must go on, as they say. So I've been getting several requests to do more video effects tutorials on the show, but I've resisted thus far because 1, I wanted to initially focus on things that were DSLR specific, and 2, 6 months ago I wasn't the best with VFX. But now, since I feel a little bit more comfortable talking about VFX, we'll be doing some tutorials on a regular basis to help you guys out. Because really, if you're watching this show, then you're probably like myself and many other producers on YouTube, in that you are most likely a one-man band. And even if you do have a 3D artist or motion graphics person and you're focusing on directing, it will only make you better to learn a bit about everything. And to be honest, in the digital age, visual effects is pretty high on the list of things that you should be familiar with. So I thought I'd start out with compositing, which I talked about briefly in a previous episode about green screening, which is one of the more basic examples of compositing. If you haven't already guessed, compositing refers to the combination of separate visual elements into one single image. To get a better idea of what this means, here are some examples of compositing seen thus far on the show. Today I'll be showing you how to pull this off as seamlessly as possible, because when it comes to compositing, your goal as an editor should be to trick your audience into believing what they are seeing. But first, I got another question from one of our viewers, which actually happened to be about compositing. Alright, so I got a question about one of the skits in episode 17 where we did a car explosion. The question was from McKay Olson. They wanted to know, how we did the car explosion. So I thought I'd talk about it this week since we're talking about compositing. I just want to talk about, the assets used and how you want to combine them to, enhance an effect, etc. And during this episode, I showed you guys how to rotoscope. And so you can refer back to that episode if you want to. But I did rotoscope myself and Colton out of this scene because if you'll see here in a second, let me hide these layers right here. You'll see that the car wasn't actually in the scene when we were running. This is our, very bottom clean plate, I guess you could say, even though we're in it, but it is our clean plate. And then we later put the car in there without moving the camera and just filmed it. And then that way we could, let me just activate these again. And later that way we can grab the car. Right here. We could mask it out and then, control it, using keyframes. And we didn't want to have to take, 3 different videos, one of a clean plate, one of us running, and then one with the car in it, or the car behind us, and then, then we have to worry about railroading the car out or masking the car out while we're running in front of it. So we just avoid that by, doing it separately, and that way we could control it, more easily. Obviously it's not in 3D or anything, it's just 2D, but it happens really fast, and, all we needed to do was have it fly for a little bit. As you can see right here, it's barely in here for 3 frames before it falls behind the house. It's got fire on it, you can't really tell. It's a little smaller and stuff, so that was good. I talked about all this stuff in the masking episode, but as you can see right here, we actually had to mask out the house on the top layer so that it could land behind it, giving you that sense of depth in 3D, and you can see it goes behind it and then the explosions happen behind it. And we have a lot of assets here. These are all from Video Copilot Action Essentials 2, and you might have heard of it, but you can get some free ones too on various sites. Just Google it. And what I wanted to say was that this isn't just one explosion happening. This is multiple explosions. As you can see here, we have a car bomb, we have dark smoke for the after effect, we have just the regular smoke initially right here, as if the car is steaming just before it blew up. Then we have another explosion, then we have a fire effect, and so it's not just one explosion. A lot of times I see people try to do an effect like this and they just do one explosion, and as you can see, there's debris too. And you just want to add as much as you can. You don't want to overdo it, but you want to add as much as you can to give that wow factor. Because I think when most people are watching this for the first time,
weren't expecting this to happen, and all of a sudden, wow, it happened. And obviously, if you slow it down, you can see some of the imperfections. I mean, maybe not right here, but later on with some of the debris on the ground, or the explosion gets really big in front of the trees. It's not perfect, but we do make an episode every week. And so this was a couple months ago, and I was just starting to learn visual effects at the time. But yeah, and you just want to have same with sound. I mean, sound's the same way. For this explosion, I used like 4 different explosions, and it one from far away. I added effects to like the same ones to make them sound a little different, just to give it a more like a fuller effect. And so you just want to combine your effects. Same with gunshots too, can be the same way. You can add an echo to it, you can add the bullet hitting the ground, and just doing all these things will help add to your visual effects and your composites. That's what this is all about, the different assets. And as you can see here, when it lands behind the house, there's another 6 assets, including the black smoke again, debris, and fireball. And I actually like the one behind the house even better, because you're able to cover up the bottom, so you get that kind of mushroom effect. It's just a little different than the other one, because the car is actually blowing up all the way. I don't know. This one was just blowing it up into the sky. And I don't know if you saw that, but the car does move the whole path. It is there the whole time. I'm trying to grab it. There it is. It goes up just a little bit, bumps up, and then it starts to shoot up, and then it shoots all the way up. Now, my RAM's kind of running a little bit hot right now, so I can't actually show you all that, but it does come up and come back around and come down. And so there you go, you just want to combine your effects, combine your sound effects, and it's going to give you some really nice composites.
And we're back. If you have a specific question about something that you've seen on the show, send it to us on Twitter at FilmIn5D, and we'll answer it for you. Now, that tutorial gives you a good idea of how to combine different assets to make special effects, but I didn't really talk about color correction, which is the final touch that every working compositing needs. Take this green screen footage, for example. In the image on the left, I clearly don't belong in the environment. Almost everyone will look at this and see that I'm just in front of a green screen. But after we apply color correction to both layers, I fit in much more nicely. We'll head on over to After Effects and I'll show you how to pull this off using color correction tools in After Effects. But normally I'd use Magic Bullet Looks or Colorista, since they have way more options.
Alright, so since we're talking about compositing, one of the main things I wanted to talk about, and the thing I'm going to talk about right now, is color correction. And a lot of times you'll be seeing amateur videos and you see green screen footage, and this is most common, and that's why I got this example here, where they have their subject in front of an outdoor scene, and you can totally tell that it is not matched up at all. Like you know that they're standing in front of a green screen, and that they're not in that environment. And the whole point about green screens is you're trying to trick them into thinking that they are there, so you have some production value or whatever it may be. You see this a lot too with fake backgrounds. Computerized backgrounds are the same thing. I have issues with the background I'm currently using, which is why I'm going to be changing it soon. It's got this kind of cartoony look, which I liked originally, but it's kind of hard to color correct too. But here's a real life example of some scenery, some trees, some snow, some rocks, and we're going to try to mash this up with some tools in After Effects. So I have this other comp over here, and I haven't added my key light yet, which is what I was using to matte this out, but I'm going to add that at the end because I want to make sure the green is a certain color. When you never want to key first, you want to key last, because the color of the green may change and your key will get messed up. So I have some effects here. I'm actually going to add one more that I forgot to add. I'm sorry, I'm doing this one-handed because of my arm, so I'm a little slow. I apologize. And so we're going to start off with levels, and I'm going to add all of these effects to both, and I have the levels effect on both the background and the foreground. This is kind of like using curves, but it's a little more, it's a little easier to do. Just gonna crush those blacks and crush the whites a little bit too, clip the whites, and do the same for mine, just so they're right about the same area. And you can also adjust the midtones to get a little bit more matchup, but picture wise that's already starting to look a little bit better. So let's go back to the top. Now that that's done, and we're gonna go to color balance next. And we have a lot of green in here. We have a lot of outdoors, colors. We have the blue. So we want to kind of lighten this one up a little bit. So we're gonna add some blues to the highlights. And we'll see how far we could push that. Obviously that's way too far. Maybe around, I don't know, 15, 16. And let me just click to show you right there what that's doing. That's giving you the impression that I'm standing under the sun, because the sun is a little bit of a, bluer light, mainly because of the sky. The color temperature is like 56K or something, whereas, indoors the lighting I was using for this setup was 32K. So you're always trying to match, first of all, the lighting, of where you're going. So think about it. If you're outdoors, it's going to be 56K most likely around that area. If you're indoors, it's going to be around 32K unless you're using, I don't know, LCDs or LEDs or something like that. And let me see, is there anything else I want to, maybe a little bit of blue in the shadow as well. See how far I can push it. Not as much here. And we're just gonna see that effect right there. And that's already, changing it quite a bit. It's making it a little bit cooler, a little bit more for the outdoors, which is what we're trying to do. And I would be adding, I said I was gonna add, a lot of these effects to, the image on the bottom as well. And I'm going to, but not the color balance. The color balance, I want this to be the same. I'm trying to get myself to look like I'm outside, not vice versa. So I like this image right here already. I don't really want to change this too much. I'm trying to change myself so I match a little bit better. So now we're going to go to hue and saturation. This is a pretty popular one. Let's just do some master saturation a little bit and see. This one I'm going to probably use to lighten up a little bit. Go a little bit lower. I'm going to do the same for this one too. And hue saturation. Just try to get them a little closer. This one's not as much. This one's already kind of saturated. So, all right, let's see how that looks. And finally, we did color balance. We did levels. We did hue and saturation. Now we want to add some diffusion. And now we're going to go ahead and add looks. And I said I was going to focus on After Effects plugins, but I do want to use looks for this final step, which is adding some diffusion. It's the easiest way to add matte diffusion that I know of. And let me see, bring down the size a little bit. Just want that, a little softness around the edges to kind of give the impression that it's a bright sunny day in the outdoors. And maybe bring the glowness down a little bit. There you go. So let's bring the glowness down a little bit. You don't want that to be too high. And then we're going to finish off by adding our keying plugin, which in this case I'm using Keylight, which most of you should use. It's very nice. And just quickly jump through this. I don't want to change that. And let's see these side by side, and there you go. The one on the right is definitely a step up. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can definitely tell a difference. Like, could probably mess around with the color balancing a little bit more, add a little bit of green, take away a little bit from the red. I don't know what else. I can mess around with the hue and saturation a little bit more. Really, I just desaturated it. I didn't really affect any of the individual colors. With that tool, you can, affect the green only or the blue, which definitely would help. But for spending only a few minutes on it, it was definitely a step up. And there you go. That's how you match up your composites a little bit better.
But that's it for this week. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below or send an @mention to me on twitter.com/AaronHammock. Follow the show's Twitter @FilmIn5D or like our Facebook page at this link here, and we'll be back next week to talk about motion tracking.
Hey, so did you have a nice St. Patty's Day?
Yeah, I did. I didn't wear green though.
Really? Did you get pinched a lot?
No. That's like elementary school stuff.
What?
Why would you do for St. Patrick's Day?
Oh.
I don't care. Dude, did you watch The Walking Dead last week?
Nope.
You didn't see the final episode?
Uh-uh.
It's pretty crazy.
Are you gonna spoil it for me?
I'm not gonna spoil it. All I'm gonna say is I'm not gonna tell you who died. I'm gonna tell you who needs to die. Carl and his mother need to die. Rick needs to just go through some more stuff. I don't care what he has to go through, but they just have to die. Like, those two actors are just, oh my god. I don't know if the director's telling her to look like this and be scared all the time, or if the little kid, he's like, but come on, like, they're so terrible. Everybody else I like on that show, those two, I don't know if it's their character. I feel it's like they're acting, like their characters. It's understandable, but I feel like the director's is like telling them the wrong thing, or they just are terrible. The kid just looks terrible, so he should just die.